Hey besties, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tash if you're new here. Today we'll be going through my entire July wrap up for every single book that I read in July. I read quite a few books. I did pretty well. As I mentioned in my last video, if you haven't already seen that video, basically I've lost all my footage and there'll be some books in here that you haven't seen a vlog for. So I'll go through those and what my thoughts were just in case I don't get that footage back. These are the books that I was meant to read this month. I had Kingdom of Ash, Priory of the Orange Tree, Leather and Luck, Foul Lady Fortune, Ghost Chilies, and Fatebound. I did only select 6 books this month because 2 of those books were quite large books and a lot of them were fantasy. They were selected by my partner if you haven't already seen that video, and in that video he did give me a challenge. The challenge was if I complete, keyword, if I complete, finish all of these books, I will get a reward. And his reward was offering a massage, facial, or, as I suggested, going to buy more books. I tried. I really tried. I really tried. Once I had the issue with my hard drive, I sort of went to a little bit of a spiral because I lost some really important footage to me, like ones of like my own personal holidays and being with my friends, those sorts of things. I was a bit upset, so I ended up going and reading quite a few books that weren't on my TBR just to get me through, continue reading, and just have a bit of fun. So I ended up not completing every single book on the TBR. So the ones I didn't get to were Leather and Luck and Fatebound. I haven't completed Priory of the Orange Tree. I am on audiobook. I'm about just under halfway for Priory of the Orange Tree, so I will continue that into this month. Now I'm trying to decide if I start with my DNFs first because they were the first and the last book of the month that I did end up getting to. So I think I'll just start with my DNFs because we'll get the bad ones out the way and then we'll go into all the good books that I really enjoyed. So the first one that I ended up DNFing and the first book I read for the entire month was Really Good Actually by Monica Heasey. I had heard some good things about this, and then I went and checked Goodreads after I ended up doing the highest and lowest rated books, and then I found out that a lot of people online did not enjoy this book. So I went in with like a bit of a mixed opinion of thinking like a lot of people I know like this book, a lot of people saying now that they don't like this book online, so I just wasn't sure where I was going to sit. And I think I just didn't get the humor for Monica Heasey and the female main character, and I just didn't click. She was going through a divorce, and part of that divorce she was trying to find herself again and like just find her footing in life and be, because it was like such a long-term relationship, she lost who she was. Yes, this isn't a very plot-driven book. This is more character-driven, so if you're not really into those sorts of books, this probably isn't the book for you. And I think I've found that I have to really connect with the character in order to read a character-driven book, because this female main character was just not for me. She was very cringy. Her pattern of like thinking was very dark, which obviously it would be with, you know, going through a divorce, those sorts of things. I've not been through one myself, but you know, it was a bit maybe right book, wrong time. It could have been. What really was the tipping point for me was this one scene. I believe it may have been chapter 14. And I know this because it was one of the last lines. It's page 130. She's having a dream and it's about Harry Styles. But the way that this dream went from like one extreme to the other, it sort of just was like, no, cringe, had to put the book down. Basically, she's with her ex-husband and Harry Styles walks up to her and puts his arm around her waist and then starts trying to make her ex-husband jealous, and then he just decides to throw like a really out-of-pocket comment to the ex-husband, John. No. No. Closed the book. It was like 9:30 at night and I was like, okay, that's enough. I'm done with this book. So yeah, DNF. I'm not going to repeat the sentence either. If you want to know what it is, I'm sure there'll be a comment online about it. The second book I ended up DNFing was a ARC that I received. So this was a gifted book from the publisher. I had some high hopes because of how cute the cover was, and unfortunately when I started the book I started noticing again a very similar trait. It was a literary fiction, character-driven book. There wasn't much plot, but I wasn't connecting with the female lead. Again, was finding some of the things she was doing and saying very cringe. Like even for instance, there were times where the best friend had mentioned trying to compliment the female lead and saying, oh, she says that you're so quirky. No. So the book is Ghost Chilies by Nikita Bakshani. The main point as to why I ended up DNFing it was after the cringy moments that I kept having on repeat. Then there was this scene later on where she ended up running into a fortune teller. Then the fortune teller tells her that in her past life she had been like abused, and there was lots of things that happened to her at the age of 15 and things that she needed to let go, just things about her past life. The female lead ended up running away from her with the guy that she's on a date with, which is like her situationship that she's trying to break up with. And then the situationship was like, who's this girl? And she explained a little bit about it and then told her about what she had said at the fortune telling, and then he goes, oh, don't worry, I'll F the 15-year-old out of you. And I was like, did I just read that last sentence right? And then I reread it and I was like, oh my god, he did not just say he'll F the 15-year-old out of her. This humour is just not funny to me. I hadn't laughed once while reading it, so I just was like, this is not for me. I really wanted to enjoy it because it's such a cute cover, but that's a no. Now, starting at the start of the month, I ended up doing a reading vlog for this book. This was part of the reading vlog, same for the one with Really Good Actually, and also another book I'm about to mention, but Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. It was my first book of hers. This is the first book of a duology. There is a novella between. I've not read the other two yet. I've only just read this one. This is about a woman. Her name is Rosalind. She's been injected with some chemical way back when in France, where this chemical allows her to never age, never sleep, never get hurt, recovers really easily, basically has like this immortality to herself, and she's trying to, you know, blend in because people ended up, you know, not really liking that sort of power that she has and wants to use her. A way to get back to her community is to become a spy, assassin, and that is now her job, where she's trying to help, you know, figure out where this chemical came from and if she can help stop making sure that it doesn't happen to anyone else. That's basically where the story starts out. She's been given an assignment with a guy, another assassin. They have to work together, and in order to do that, they are going to pose as a married couple to infiltrate this secret society. And they go on all these little missions together. They have a very forced proximity, and there's a little bit of hostility between them. It's a lot of fun, there's a lot of banter, there's a lot of action. The mystery element behind this book was so much fun. There were some points where the book did like go really high with the plot, and then it would die off a little bit for me, where I'd lose some interest, but it still kept me coming back like one chapter later. It was such a fun journey, and the plot twists at the end, there were so many thrown at me. I was like, oh, that's the plot twist, and then 2 seconds later there was another plot twist. It just kept going and going and going, and I really enjoyed that because it just kept me right on the edge of my seat. And now I need to dive into the second book of the series, because where it leaves off, so you're just like, what? Oh, and this is a bit of a historical book because it is set in 1931, so it's a historical fantasy-ish. Anyway, I did give this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book. If you're looking for a fun, action-packed book, I highly recommend this. Oh, I just realized that that book was not in with the Really Good Actually. That was a completely separate video, but these 2 books were in the same. Butcher and Blackbird is the next book I'm going to talk about. So this is by Bryn Weaver. It's the first book in her series. Leather and Lark was what was on my TBR, so I ended up reading this in order to then proceed with Leather and Lark, but unfortunately I just didn't get to it. This is a romance book between 2 serial killers. They are very messed up, very deranged people, but it is a rom-com, and I think the way that this book meshes the dark, serious matters with the rom-com and making it like light-hearted and not missing out on the cute romance element. They did such a good job of meshing that together. I thoroughly enjoyed that. However, parts of it didn't hit for me. Now I'll start with the plot a little bit about what happens. So we do have the 2 main characters. What are their names again? Sloane and Rowan. I was like, I remember their serial killer names, but I forgot their real names. Sloane ends up having a bit of a meet cute with Rowan. She's actually unalived someone and gets caught. Rowan is coming that same night to also unalive the same person that she is. They are both Dexter style serial killers. They only kill bad people. He runs in and finds her in the position caught with this body, they have a bit of a meet cute, then they sort of exchange details and say like, I really want to meet with you, we should meet up again sometime. Then a year later they decide to contact each other and they have this race that they put on, and they have to get to this one bad guy. Whoever, you know, gets the job done first is the winner. And this becomes like a pattern for them every year. So they have lots of time jumps. Slowly they build this friendship and forming, and a romance builds from there. I think it's cute. However, once we hit the maybe 60% mark, I think that the spice just took over and it was very dominating. Plot twist as well was very predictable. I saw that coming from a mile away. All the little nuggets of information that we were getting towards the plot twist, I just saw every piece of information. I was like, yeah, yep, that, piece it together too easily. So I think that was a bit of a letdown. And then once the plot twist happened, we still had maybe like 30 pages left, which included an epilogue and a couple other chapters. And I didn't, like, once I got to those points, I just didn't care. Like, my brain just turned off. I was flicking through pages for no reason at all. So I think that's where it lost me, about the 60% mark. So it was going so well until that point. I'm still going to stick with the same rating that I ended up giving it in the video, and that was a 3-star. There were lots of elements that I really enjoyed about the romance. However, yeah, there was just those points that ended up losing me a little bit. But I'm very excited to see the TV adaptation for this because, movie adaptation, I believe it is. And that will be so much fun. It will be very interesting to see how they play out that Dexter-style relationship and have the rom-com element. They will really need to get the right actors for that role because it's just going to be a really fine line of like unhinged and funny. Oh, and I forgot to mention that this is also a gifted book from the publishers. Next, we're going to move in to my favorite book from the entire month. I still can't believe that I read this book and it's done, but I'm sure you can guess from the way I'm talking, but it is Kingdom of Ash. It is the final book in the Throne of Glass series. Obviously, I cannot talk anything about the plot. If you do want to see some of my reactions to this book, please check the video I've got linked above right here. That video goes into a lot of detail as to my reactions for everything throughout the book. Spoiler free, definitely. What a masterpiece this is. I didn't think this series could get better because as much as I enjoyed a lot of the other books in the series, some of them were hit and miss for me at the start. And this book really made all of that torture for those other books worth the wait because I've never felt so connected to some characters, and I think that's because I've been through every single book with them, and there's been so many books, and getting to learn each of their personalities, all of their stories, and finally getting to see how this all comes to an end. Because I mean, truly, we've been reading about what happens in this book since the first page. Everything that's built up to this has all been one big plan, one big story. It's all been there, it's all been shown to us, and I think it's so fascinating how an author's mind can, you know, depict one story and continue it through so many books and deliver it in such a way that is just so consuming. I'm obsessed with this book. I'm obsessed with this series. 5 stars for this book. Overall, for the Overall, for the Throne of Glass series, I would say it's probably maybe a 4-star series for me. And I know that that's like a big thing to say because it's such a beloved series, but I think there are quite a few books in there that don't quite hit that same mark. That this level of this level of artistry in this book is just insane. Just continually, each chapter, it gets more and more addicting. So yeah, this book was just incredible. I don't really need to say much else because I'll just keep talking about it forever. Please go watch that vlog I put up because you'll see me crying. The emotions are high. I'm sad that I finished. I don't know when I'm going to start Crescent City though. I don't know if I will start Crescent City this year. We'll have to see because wintertime, my thoughts do change, especially with fantasy. But right now, definitely not the summer. I think I need a break from that sort of universe before I go into Crescent City. I read these books just before I was about to start my final vlog, which obviously I've lost the footage for. So this was like an in-between book that I was reading to just, you know, get in a fun, spicy book. I read Dust Storm by Maggie C. Gates, and this was the first book of the Griffith Brothers series. So the Dust Storm series, this sort of gave me similar vibes to the dynamic a little bit of the Heartless book, but it just wasn't quite there. I gave Dust Storm 3 stars. That's because it just wasn't, I don't know, like it I just didn't love the characters as much. The plot as well, I was not obsessed with. So we do have Christian, who is a single dad, and then we also have Cassandra, and she's going through a little bit of a breakup with her partner, who ends up dropping her off at this ranch. The reason she's being put on this ranch is because she is the PR publicist for a high-end celebrity, and she ended up making a mistake on one of the public jobs that she had, and they needed to take her out of the spotlight because she was getting a lot of backlash for it. So they sent her to this ranch for the company, which was another job that that company had been delivered to and that they needed to find a solution for. She was going to live on site on this ranch in order to think of ways to expand this business for the ranch. Cassandra then ends up living with Christian and his children. The story does start out like quite interesting. At first I was a little bit confused about what had happened initially with Cassandra and this PR relationship that she had with this celebrity. It wasn't fully detailed, so I was very confused at first, and then we went into like learning about their relationship and this ranch, and then all of a sudden it goes back to the old storyline. We then find out more information. I just wish at the start we got a little bit more of an explanation as to what had happened, because when I was learning about the ranch, the entire time I was thinking, I just don't quite understand this. I don't understand this. And I think if they were explained a little bit better, without obviously giving away what was going to happen later on in the book, I don't think it would have been questioning as much as what I did. So yeah, that was probably my only point. And I did write in my notes here, so it was small town, cowboy, workplace romance, single dad, reverse grumpy sunshine. Then we got to the spice, and that was where things just lost me. He was just saying the most cringy things. When a man like speaks too much during the spice scenes or says like a lot of things that I'm just like, stop. Just stop. Yeah, and then Cassandra was like sometimes very annoying towards me. Some of her choices, I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You are no Willa. Another point here I just wrote down, it lacked a lot of emotional depth, and I think what that came down to was Cassandra having a really tough time dealing with kids, and I think the way that she dealt with kids, she treated them like adults, but however, the way I saw it and the way I was reading it was that she hated kids. Like, she did not like his kids. The way she would speak to them, I was like, are you really gonna let this woman speak to your kids that way? She would just say the most outrageous, blunt things to these kids and not really not give them the attention that they're looking for when, you know, like kids deserve that sort of love and affection at that age because they are so young and vulnerable, and I just think that she was just too cutthroat with them. I think overall it was just the connection between all the characters and the world. It didn't work out. So yeah, I gave that 3 stars. Okay, we have 3 more books left. I've got the next one, which is The Summer I Destroyed You. This is the first.
Like, can you speak?
I'm actually losing my wording. This is the 4th book in the Summer series by Elizabeth Warwick. Basically, Emmy leaves her small town. She becomes this strong, amazing businesswoman who builds like a very wealthy portfolio for herself. She decides that she has to come back home to look after her mother in order for her mum to get these surgeries and things done at the doctor's. So Emmy moves back in with her mother. It's a very hard time for her because her and her mother don't get along. In the meantime, she is also organizing to rebuild some of the small town through her company. And hey besties, my camera overheated and I have no idea where I left the conversation off in regards to the plot for this book. I'm gonna try and refresh a little bit. I think I got up to the point where I said that Liam was a contractor and that they've been messaging regarding some of the work that she's been doing in the small town. Basically, the start of the book does start out with them actually texting back and forth about the jobs before she ended up coming back to the small town. So they've been in contact for quite a while. They have such a good relationship, and then when they do actually meet, they don't hit it off. There is a bit of a conflict there. So it is a bit of a workplace romance between them, and that sort of blossoms from there the more that they have a bit of forced proximity. He's also working on the house next door to her mother's house, so there is a bit of close contact that way as well, so he gets to see a bit of her home life in that regard. If anyone does have a trigger warning for eating disorders, anything with like bad relationships with parents, or just really abusive child mother-daughter relationships, massive trigger warning for this book because it does get quite deep. And that's something that with Elizabeth Warwick, she does always have a deeper, darker message somewhere within her books, but she does it in a way that it doesn't go too far in that regard. So it talks about it. There is a bit of on-page abuse, like, I'm not gonna lie, there is some comments the mother makes where I'm like, oh, but it's not, I mean, I'm not here to say that something may trigger one person, but it may not trigger another, so I'm just going to put it all across the board, like, trigger warning for this. But yeah, I will point out, if you are a girl who loves a grumpy female lead character, the black cat, golden retriever energy, you will love this book. I really enjoyed the dynamic between the two. He was very open, he always said the right things, especially in regards to, like, her coming back to the small town. Growing up, she got severely bullied. That is another trigger warning. There's honestly quite a few trigger warnings in this book. He really stood up for her and made her feel comfortable and just, like, let her be her. So that's, like, a really lovely relationship dynamic that I enjoyed seeing between them two. Oh, one thing I did put down in my comments was it mentions the pandemic. Ick. Yeah, it was too soon to be mentioning the pandemic. I don't know why it was brought up in a book. I do not like that. If anyone doesn't like miscommunication as well, there is miscommunication in this book. Oh, if anyone loves an angry first kiss, I made a note of that. There was an angry first kiss. Yeah, I think that's mainly all my main comments. So I did end up giving this 3.5 stars. Again, mainly all of these books in this entire series I've given about the same rating. It is an all-round, like, really good bingeable series. 3.5 stars. Thoroughly enjoy it. Recommend it as well. This whole series I recommend. This was gifted to me by the publishers as well. Just wanted to make that clear. The next book I picked up, this was when I lost everything. This is when I had a bit of a mental breakdown and I said, I'm gonna read a book for me right now. This is a book to get me out of a bad mood, and I wanted something that I hadn't read in quite a while. I went, you know what? Let's go dark, spicy romance. To be honest, it was spicy, but it wasn't that spicy. Like, when I think back on it, like, it was in the middle. So I ended up reading The Choice by Ashley Jade. I've read quite a few of Ashley Jade's books, maybe like 2.5 years ago. I've got a couple on my shelf up there. Yeah, I really enjoy her writing style and I enjoy, like, her fun books. This one was a love triangle between two brothers, but they weren't technically brothers. They are not foster care, sorry. Is it foster care? Yeah, I think it is foster care. Foster care brothers, they're in, like, the system. I forget the American name. Oh my god, what is the name? Anyway, I'm just gonna say foster care. I can't remember the... I'm having a mental blank. And then basically, so they end up together, they get taken into a home. They see themselves as brothers because they've been together through so much and they've shared their trauma with each other, and their traumas aren't the same, but they trust each other. So they are like a package deal. This one family ends up adopting them, and one of the neighbors nearby is this girl. Memphis and Josh are the brothers. Memphis is the main male lead, and Josh is the brother who's just, like, part of the story. Girl next door, which is Skylar. Skylar is also a girl from a abusive household, and we get to see a lot of that on page in the story. So trigger warning for this entire book. Josh and Skylar are the ones that actually hit it off first. They share a deep bond because this is the first person that Skylar's ever met that's had a similar story to her. That trauma bond between them has their relationship going from the age of, I think, in their, like, early teens, and then up until they're about 17, 18. And then we've got Memphis, who's on the side. Originally the first one to see Skylar crying one night, but ended up not getting to meet her like Josh did. So he's always then just become the brother. Had to watch him and the girl he likes date through all these years, and he's just stayed off to the side. Obviously, as the story progresses, things get a bit messy, things happen, and it becomes a love triangle. There is a couple plot twists in here, dark topics, dark themes. It's very angsty. I really enjoyed the angst. I think I missed having a book where the angst was so high that you're just like, I need to finish this book right now. I need to stop everything I'm doing. I need to finish this book. And that's how I felt with this. One thing about this book as well that I realized is that this is a time jumpy book from young to about 17, 18. And I'm assuming, because this is a duet, that in book 2 we will have a time jump, because I'm pretty sure it mentioned something about them going off to college. So I don't know if now we're going to see them after college or as adults, or if this will be then them through college. Pre-warning, we don't get happily ever after at the end of this book. It is a duet. It's unfinished. The next book doesn't come out until September, which... save me, because I need that book right now. Oh, and some tropes I put down. So we have best friend or brother's girlfriend, dark romance, forbidden. It is a rock star romance. There is cheating involved in this book, so I do want to put that out there. I don't believe it's cheating physically, but there is a slight emotional cheating towards the end of this. There is cheating on parties not related to the main characters, but the main characters get cheated on. And there is a lot of trigger warnings for things like death, abuse, drug abuse. Yeah, anyway, it is a very slow burn, childhood friends to lovers type of thing between Memphis and Skylar. It is really fun. I ended up giving it a 3.75. I'm not sure if it hits the 4-star mark for me, like it's not quite there, but we will see how the second duet goes, because I'm excited to see, like, with the plot twist and everything that happened, how that's going to play out. However, I did see the plot twist coming, so I think that's why I didn't quite give it that 4-star. And then the final book that I read this month was When Ashes Fall by Marnie Mann. I almost forgot who wrote this. I only finished this book a day ago. I haven't read a book since. Look, it was... A lot of people had mentioned that this was like one of their favorite books that they'd read all year round, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I've had a few people say that they really enjoyed it. The thing is, I was enjoying it, but everything was so predictable. Like, what was happening in the story, so noticeable, because I've read other books similar to this, without giving it away, but it's a JT Geisinger book. I'm not gonna say which book it is, but it's very similar to her book. The comparisons between, like, the foreshadowing of things that are happening, like, it's just worlds apart. This follows a book with Alex, Dylan, and Cole. It isn't a book with a love triangle or cheating. It is mentioned that on the back of the book. I mean, I'm sure you can guess from that where the story is heading. Like, it's mentioned across so many of the parts of this book that cheating is not involved. So if you're smart, you can sort of figure out where things are going. So one time jump is with Dylan 3 years ago, and then there's the current day where she's trying to go out and have a date, but her best friend's trying to set her up with all these people, and then she goes out with one date with a guy named Smith who she meets and she has a connection with, and they have a bit of a odd meeting. She was actually a first responder. When she sees Smith out one time, he is with his best friend, and his best friend is having an overdose. She goes over to help, makes the call to 911, gets him into the hospital, and goes off on her own way. Later on, she ends up messaging him through social media because she wanted to find out if everything went okay. They end up continuing to talk, they end up dating, and the time jumps with Dylan are going through how she met Dylan and how he was a pilot and a really wealthy man, and how she had this wonderful life with Dylan. That's where you're starting out. I don't want to say too much further because obviously it goes into more of the book and their relationships. I just think that the plot being so predictable was not great, and I think the event that happens at the end, that is quite a large point for the book. I just don't think that that's something that should be used in a book to profit off, especially like one that's like a real life thing. I can't say too much. Anyway, I just didn't agree with how it was used in that context of a book and a romance story. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I'm not sure if I will drop that to 2.5 because it really, the more I'm sitting with it, the more I'm just thinking, I don't really know, so I'll put up on the screen if I end up changing that rating to anything lower. These are all the physical books that I have here that I need to go put back on my shelf, but I think I did okay. Obviously, a couple DNFs. I'm excited to continue on with this next month. If you haven't already seen my other video for the books I've chosen for August, I have such a great TBR. I'm so excited to film any videos relating to these books. I've got so many good ideas, so I can't wait for you guys to see them. I'm gonna probably end up the video here. I will love you and leave you, and I will see you guys in my next video.